Good Erev Shabbos. This is Rabbi Kovacs, and Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 1 of Kidushin, Mishnah Het, the 8th Mishnah. Yesterday we compared mitzvot, commandments that a man has to do, time-dependent commandments, versus what a woman has to do, which we discussed yesterday includes many of the time-dependent commandments about Yom Tov and the like, but doesn't include things like shaving the beard and the payas. If a woman happens to have a beard or payas, she may shave those off. But anyway, on that theme, Mishnah Het continues. Hasmichot. Smichot is leaning on an animal that's about to be your sacrifice. Hatnufot, waving of karbanot, of offerings. Hahagashot, bringing offerings near to the mizbeach. Hakmitzot, kmitza is the scooping that a kohen does of the mincha, where they take out a section of the mincha, the komets, to burn on the mizbeach. Then they bake up and eat the rest. Hahaktarot, burning items like the kmitza or the karbanot on the mizbeach. Hamalikot. Malika is a form of shchita, a form of special slaughter for birds done in the temple, involving the sharpened thumbnail of the kohen on the neck of the bird. The hazayut, and sprinkling of blood of animal offerings. The kabbalot, and receiving blood of the animal offerings in a kli. Nogin ba'anoshim, these only apply to men. And really, these only apply to Kohanic men for most of these items we mentioned. Only the smicha and the tznufa men might be able to do. V'lo b'nashim, not even women, not even Mrs. Cohen. Chutz min minchat sota. But as we mentioned back in Sota, if a woman is, accused, there's suspicions, and she has to come to the base of Mikdash and undergo the Sota ritual, part of that is bringing a mincha. That one she does wave together with the Kohen, we discussed there. Unazira, and a female Nazir, one of their offerings is waved. Shehen minifot, women do indeed wave those. But the other items, now smicha, it says daber al b'nei Yisrael v'samach. So that's really only men are required to lean their hands, and sometimes they would say a vidui, say the sins they committed. If it was a hatas, an asham, something that was coming to cleanse a sin, women are then not obligated. And these other things apply really only to Cohanim serving in the temple, and only the male Cohanim were serving. Let's go on to Mishnah Tet. Kol mitzvah shehi tluya ba'aretz. Any mitzvah that depends on Eretz Yisrael. Eina neheget el ba'aretz. It only applies in Eretz Yisrael. For example, Shemitah, not working in the Shemitah, the sabbatical year. Sheina tluya ba'aretz, things that do not depend on the land. Noheget bein ba'aretz, bein b'chutz la'aretz. They apply everywhere. So we put on tefillin, we daven, we blow shofar in every location. Though there is a Ramban, a very Zionistic Ramban, that he says that really the mitzvot done outside of Eretz Yisrael, they're on a bit of a lower level. They're something like practice, like chinuch. They're like practice, so we don't forget the mitzvot when we come back to Eretz Yisrael. I've heard stories. There are Hasidim and Gedolim. They put on tefillin in the morning in New York City, then they flew to Eretz Yisrael, and then they put on tefillin again, based on this Ramban, that really the mitzvah has a deeper significance in Eretz Yisrael, even though it applies everywhere. But now the Mishnah concludes with exceptions, things that apply everywhere, even though really they're based on agricultural mitzvot. Chutz mina orla, but not orla, that applies everywhere. And that orla is the prohibition to eat the first 3 years of what grows from a tree. So you plant a tree, you've got to wait 3 years. Now in Chutz La'aretz, there are leniencies. If there's a suffix, for instance, there's a suffix orla. If you go into Home Depot and you buy an orange tree and it's already 4 feet tall, and you ask the guy and he says, yeah, that's 3 or 4 years old, that's pretty good already. Now you'd have to plant it with the goosh, with the dirt still on it. If you shake the dirt off the roots, it's like starting over the clock. And also the Mishnah adds about kiloim. Kiloim applies everywhere. Here we're talking about kiloi hakerem, planting grape seeds along with grains. That you cannot do anywhere. Rabbi Lezer Omer af min hadash. Rabbi Lezer says af hadash. Even hadash applies everywhere. Hadash is the new grain. Every year, whatever new grain is growing cannot be eaten until the Omer is brought. Now the Omer is brought on the first day of Pesach, rather of Chol HaMoed Pesach. So the Ketziras HaOmer, the cutting of the barley for the Omer, is done when people are having their second Seder of Pesach in Chutz La'aretz. Over in Eretz Yisrael, they're cutting the barley for the Omer, and then that day, the first day of Chol HaMoed, they're bringing the Omer, and that is matir the Chadash, that allows people to eat from the new crop that is just being harvested that year. And it's interesting, one of the enactments of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai to remember the temple was that entire day, the 16th of Nisan, the hadash is forbidden until the end of the day, because they might rebuild the temple on that exact day and then bring the Karban Omer that day. And though they normally brought the Karban Omer as soon as possible in the morning, but the temple might not be built until the afternoon, and then you got to get the barley together and grind it up, so it might take a while. So that entire day is forbidden because the temple could be built, should be built, please God, any day. Now, in halacha, hadash is very interesting because we actually paskin like Rabbi Eliezer that hadash applies everywhere. But the Rishonim already, the Ramah and others in Europe, they said that we are lenient by hadash over in Poland and Russia, where really there was basically nothing to eat. But they said they could be lenient on the basis of a sveka, of a double doubt, that maybe this particular produce is yashan, is old, is not hadash, and maybe even if it's new, it took root, 30 days before the cutoff date. So some people, some poskim ask questions. Wasn't that one doubt? Because if it took root, then it's not chadash really. So certain groups in Europe, the Talmidei Agra, were very machmir. There's stories that some of the Hasidim wanted to be machmir, and then they had dreams with the Baal Shem Tov telling them not to be machmir on Klal Yisrael because they already have this kula. I have heard an explanation that over in Europe, the food processing was very different, and old stuff and new stuff would commonly get mixed together and stored together, and it was all sort of in one big mess, really. So when you got a sack of grain, you don't really know what's old and what's new. So, and even if it kind of looks new, maybe it's not new. So there's room for leniency based on the way they processed grains and produce back then. In modern day America, thank God, you can get lists of stuff that's actually chadash and yashan, and based on the sell by dates and things like this, because it's much more things are kept track of much better in modern food processing. So because of that, Baruch Hashem, a lot of Jews are now machmir on chadash. I don't know if you can call it machmir if the Shulchan Aruch and Rabbi Eliezer tell you to do it. I don't know if it's a chumrah, but Baruch Hashem, it's able, the mitzvah is able to be observed again thanks to modern technology. Baruch Hashem. Shabbat Shalom and Zay Gesund.